Just in case everybody out there hadn't already worked it out, this is the big one. Sunshine by the truckload, glamorous women by the regiment. Grand Prix racing's most charismatic location. That is Formula One Monte Carlo style, with David Coulthard up front and Jaguar looking much, much better. Eddie Irvine in sixth position. You've heard what may be, but we sincerely hope will not be a problem from James Allen. Traction control. You know how narrow this circuit is. James has told you, Martin has shown you. Saint-Devote, the first corner, this year with a magnificent new statue of Grover Williams in the Bugatti, the man who won the first Monaco Grand Prix in 1929. What's your view of the start?
I think Mika Häkkinen summed it up nicely on the grid walk to say that, you know, if you're just holding position and you emerge from Saint-Devote on the first lap, it's almost an achievement around here. But as we know, it's very, very difficult to overtake. It's going to be a long haul, I think, to those first pit stops, Mario. We know from Austria, we think we know from earlier races in the year, particularly Austria, that the McLaren can probably carry more fuel than the Ferrari by 3 or 4 laps. It means they're going to be heavier at the start. Michael will be wanting to try to pounce early on and get away from the McLarens if he's got half a chance into turn 1. But of course, they've all got launch control. If that works, they should be away from the grid, and then it'll just be a very long haul to that first pit stop. And it's so easy around here, Murray, to make one tiny slip. You need total concentration for an hour and 50 minutes in the most extreme circumstances, and one tiny lapse of concentration, you're virtually guaranteed to hit the wall.
78 laps of it. This race is going to last the thick end of 2 hours, and it is hot. It's going to be about 1 hour 50 minute race. The track temperature is 37 degrees. That's some 20 degrees hotter than it was in Austria 2 weeks ago. And they do literally thousands of gear changes in this race. It's just as well that they've got those paddles under the steering wheel to simplify things these days. In the old days, when they were doing it themselves with a gear lever, they literally came in at the end of the race with blisters on their hands. Passing, of course, as you've heard many, many times, is a major problem. Martin's talked to you about staying out a long time, and the McLaren staying out perhaps longer than the Ferraris. I wouldn't expect a stop, a refueling stop, before around about lap 50 out of 78 laps here at Monaco, and it puts my mind back to 1992. That fantastic race when Nigel Mansell led Ayrton Senna, Nigel in the Williams, Senna in the McLaren. Mansell thought he had a puncture, had to come in. Senna took the lead, and Mansell caught him and swarmed all over his gearbox for the rest of the race, but did not win it. 6 wins for Ayrton Senna, 5 wins for Graham Hill, and Michael Schumacher has won this race 4 times already. 94, 5, 7 and 9. Last year he was leading by a country mile, and a cracked exhaust pipe burnt out his rear suspension. David won the race. Can he do it again?
And in the warm-up this morning, Coulthard fastest then by a fraction from Häkkinen. So the two McLarens looking very strong through warm-up, and through free practice, you have to say Häkkinen was fastest in 3 of the 4 of them. So we're expecting a lot of speed. That McLaren certainly looking much stronger, much more secure than it did in the early races of the season. But we know how acrobatic Michael Schumacher can be. And look at the state of those front tyres. Clearly Barrichello starting the race on used tyres. I think they get some understeer for the first 10 laps, brand new ones, and then they start to come in. Barrichello's deciding he wants good grip right from the start. And another set of Michelin this time on a Williams. That'll be Ralf Schumacher then, and he also wants to start on, look, new rear tyres. You can see the shiny, the glistening of the rear tyres. That is the releasing agent that they put in the moulds. It takes a little bit of getting off just to, oh no, and Coulthard has stalled.
Oh, this is terrible. David Coulthard has stalled the engine. Everybody else gets away. If they all get clear, he's going to have to start, and Häkkinen comes out from behind him. If this is what happened to Michael Schumacher at the Japanese Grand Prix, and what a terrible psychological downer it is for David Coulthard. Now he's going to have to start from the back of the grid.
Yes, he is. Coulthard then, if they can get it running. Can't imagine how or why that has happened yet again on a McLaren. So just no idea, of course, standing up in the corner. He is obviously extremely angry about it. Häkkinen can make his way back through the field. James, what can you tell us?
I'm standing about 6 feet from the back of the McLaren. Coulthard punching the steering wheel in desperate frustration. Whether it's the technology or whether it's him, and it's another bit of what Ron Dennis referred to as brain fade, we will have to find out later in the race. The rear wheels are spinning. That's the sound of his engine firing up, guys. So he is going to go round. He will take the start of the race at the very back, Coulthard.
Well, I just cannot imagine anything that could possibly have been worse for David Coulthard. Here at Monaco, of all places, there he is going into Saint-Devote, up the Beau Rivage. Instead of first on the track, he is 22nd on the track. The man who is 4 points behind Michael Schumacher in the World Championship, the man who has scored points in every race so far this year, and the only one to do so. Cruel bit of luck, but something has happened to McLaren in the last 2 races. It looks as though, I don't know, but it looks as though it's a system problem.
Who knows, Murray, who knows? But of course he had to start from the back in Barcelona and lost his front wing in the first corner. So easy to do here as well. And Coulthard's only hope is that there's an aborted start, that somebody else stalls their engines, and with an aborted start or a red flag on lap 1, then he may have a chance of resuming his original grid position. But right now, the new lap record holder of this circuit is starting at the tail of the field.
Yeah, well spotted, Martin. That's what David Coulthard must be hoping for. And of course, Michael Schumacher there is now effectively in pole position, smiling all over his face. But as I said before, the same thing has happened to him in the past. But right now, it is Michael Schumacher up front. Mika Häkkinen behind him, now effectively second on the grid. You can see Rubens Barrichello's Ferrari behind Michael Schumacher's. Ralf Schumacher is now effectively 4th on the grid in the Williams, and Eddie Irvine up to 5th position. And there is the unfortunate David Coulthard. Well, teeth gritted, eyes slitted. He's going to have to really get down to it now. In the worst place in the world, as the 3rd light goes on, the 4th light goes on, the 5th, and it is go! Schumacher leads into Saint-Devote. Are they all going to get around? And there's Montoya trying to go through on the inside. Fingers crossed. David Coulthard has already passed one tail ender. That will be Tasso Marquez. But Schumacher leads, Häkkinen leads, Barrichello leads, Ralf Schumacher 4th in the Williams as they come through Casino Square, down past the Hotel Metropole, turning into the Mirabeau. Now the grand hairpin. That is about a 20-mile-an-hour corner in first gear. And thank heavens, but David Coulthard won't be saying this, they have all got away safely. It's a good start at Monaco. And David is, I was wrong about him passing Tasso Marquez. And he is still last on the track. First on... Oh, somebody hit the wall. Somebody hit the wall. Who is it? It looks like a Sauber to me. It is a Sauber.
It's Raikkonen, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's Heidfeld.
Sorry, it's Heidfeld.
Now, this is going to be a problem. There's not a crane there. Look there, you see Heidfeld slam into the wall.
I think there was some contact with the arrows and just launched Heidfeld. Front wheels will be off the ground, no way of turning in or braking. And Coulthard just making his way around the back of the field, just trying to avoid the various disasters, really not attacking on that first lap. Probably the sensible thing to do. But up front then, Schumacher leads over the line.
Well, now Michael Schumacher can control this race. He's second fastest on the grid, one of the fastest Grand Prix driver of all on record. And now with 4 Monaco Grand Prix victories behind him already, he has a clear track in front of him. He has Mika Häkkinen at the end of the first lap. A massive 1.1 seconds behind him. Doesn't look it on the screen, but it is. Rubens Barrichello 3rd. Ralf Schumacher in 4th position, and his teammate Montoya is right behind him. Now Montoya effectively started 6th, but he's gained a place already. And the Colombian has driven here in the past in Formula 3000. Pablo Montoya. He hasn't done all that well by his standards in qualifying, 7th on the grid, but here we are at the chicane. They come out of the tunnel at some 180 miles an hour. Schumacher, Häkkinen, Barrichello, Ralf, then Montoya, Eddie Irvine up there, Trulli, Villeneuve, Fisichella, Alesi, Panis, Raikkonen and Fredson back there.
So Michael Schumacher. Dream start for him, Murray. If he has a little less fuel on board, it's perfect for him to be able to try and stretch away at the front end there. Hakkinen more having to defend from Barrichello than chasing after Michael at this time. But for Coulthard, still down in 21st place, passing a lot of people in Barcelona is difficult enough. Around here, Murray, virtually impossible.
Well, I'm sure James Allen or Louise will be trying desperately to find out what has happened to David Coulthard. They'll be talking to the McLaren people. We'll let you know as soon as we know ourselves. I have to say, sadly, it is of academic interest because my old cliche, anything can happen in Formula One, and it normally does. But for David Coulthard to claw his way up from 22nd on the grid into the points would be miraculous. To win the race would be unbelievable. But stranger things, not much, but stranger things have happened. Montoya is flying, Barrichello is flying, Eddie Irvine is in 6th position in the points, and the Jaguar team have yet this year to score a World Championship point. Irvine loves this circuit. He's had a 2nd, a 3rd and a 4th. He was 4th last year. Fingers crossed for him.
Look at those two BMW Williams on their Michelins, hanging on there very, very nicely in 4th and 5th place. Montoya, fastest man on the track last time around. And here is a replay of the start. Coulthard is missing, and really copybook starts for the... we think Montoya's off somewhere.
Yeah, there he is. There he is. It's the exit from the swimming pool. So that's the first retirement. Let's see what happens. Montoya runs wide, out steps the back, into the Armco, and that is the first right-hander at the swimming pool. He's parked it in a nice, tidy place. There's a crane there. They'll be able to haul the Williams BMW off the track. No points for Montoya.
Yeah, the marshals are particularly good there, and they're helped by that crane, and they'll operate under waved yellows, which means the drivers must significantly slow down, and that they will have to do, but they will clear that car very, very quickly. Montoya losing it in the first part of the swimming pool, whacking the barrier, launched across the curbs, I think, lost the back end of the car, and finished his accident at the end of the swimming pool. So a bit of an untidy length there of the swimming pool.
Well, Eddie Irvine is in 5th position, but it's the first 4 who are making the running, and down there in the pit lane you can see Luciano Berti, who had a very big crash yesterday when his brakes failed approaching Saint-Devote. But James Allen has got news for us.
Yes, I'm down at the McLaren timing stand. I just went up to Pat Fry, David Coulthard's senior race engineer. I said, have you got any idea what caused that? He said, yeah. I said, you're going to tell me? He said, no. Maybe after the race they'll let us know whether it was David or the electronics.
Well, yep, and no are really no help. This is the third, presumably systems problem that McLaren have had in 3 races. They had one in Austria, of course, with poor Mika Hakkinen. They had one in Spain. If it is a systems problem again here, to put it mildly, they will be kicking themselves. You could see the alarm and the fury on David Coulthard's face. His eyes widened behind the visor. He looked across at the pit lane, as much as to say, it's gone, the engine's gone, I've lost the power. That's exactly what happened. He's now in 19th place. He's got past Montoya, of course. He's got past Heidfeld, of course. They're both out of the race. He's now 18th because he's got past Berti and Tarso Marquez. And David Coulthard's lapping at about 1:24.9. That's 1.1 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher, who's currently the fastest. But of course, Coulthard is being blocked all the way. He's having to fight his way past people.
Yes, he's done a new fastest sector in the middle on that last lap. As soon as he gets clear air, he'll just home straight in on the guy in front because he's got a faster car. As we know, he's really been on form around here. Did I see what was Hakkinen passing? Was that a Ferrari that Hakkinen were behind Hakkinen, or is Michael Schumacher's lead's now 1.9? No, it must have been Barrichello I saw in the background.
Yeah, it's very easy to get, but Barrichello has really been flying in the second Ferrari, and there is Michael Schumacher. He's coming through now. He's coming through to complete his 5th lap. On lap 4, he led by 1.9 seconds. Up to Saint-Devote he goes. He's increased his lead by 0.7 of a second in that 1 lap to 2.5 seconds. And Rubens Barrichello is hanging on behind him. But the top Michelin runner at the moment, Ralf Schumacher, the man who won the San Marino Grand Prix in the Williams BMW, is holding on to Barrichello and Hakkinen ahead of him with no trouble at all. 1:23.9 for Hakkinen, 1:24.1 for Ralf Schumacher. There he is. His teammate Montoya already out of the race, as is Nick Heidfeld. So 2 retirements, 22 started, 20 are still running. David Coulthard, who got away last, is now 18th.
We know the Bridgestones are probably graining a bit and hurting a little bit for the first 10 laps. Michael, just with a piece of debris there caught, a piece of ribbon or something caught, no problems at all for him. That's well clear of any radiator ducts or brake ducts, so no drama for Michael Schumacher. But the Michelin tyres of Ralf Schumacher, current 4th place man, he looks good at this stage. Will he be able to hang on in there as those Bridgestones really come into play between lap, say, 12 and lap 56 or whenever they're coming in?
Well, as if he hadn't got any talent, and heaven knows he's got enough of that. This is where a race-trained brain like Michael Schumacher's really comes into its own. This is his 150th Grand Prix. But of particular interest is the blue car that you're watching now. It's Giancarlo Fisichella. He's in 8th place in the Benetton, having started in 10th position. The Benettons are going much better here. They have a massive power deficiency with their Renault V10 engines, but it doesn't matter as much at Monaco as it does at some of the faster circuits like Silverstone.
So we're on lap 7, and last time around, for the first time in this race, Mika Häkkinen, 2nd place man Häkkinen, was slightly faster than leader Michael Schumacher. The first time Häkkinen's been able to peg that lead that Schumacher's built up of 2.4 seconds then, and that is Coulthard cruising up to the back of both the arrows. The problem he's got is he's got to pass them fair and square. He has no advantage of blue flags. If he was lapping them, they'd have to scamper out of the way within 3 corners. And the problem for Coulthard is, as Schumacher and co come through the field and start lapping cars, which they will do several times, many of these cars, then they get the benefit of the blue flags, and Coulthard's got to muscle his way through.
Well, the lead of the 2 orange arrows is Enrique Bernoldi, the Brazilian driver, with his teammate Jos Verstappen tucked up behind him, and David Coulthard looking for a way past both of them, as there is Jenson Button. There is Alonso. Here is Bernoldi, followed by Verstappen, followed by David Coulthard in 18th position. Into the swimming pool, left-hander, right-hander, right-hander, left-hander coming up. Then down to the Rascash. You can remember what James Allen was saying about how narrow this circuit is, how difficult it is to pass. And if you put your car in just the right position, as Senna did in 92, even if you're Nigel Mansell, you're not going to get past. Well, even if you're David Coulthard and you've got a power advantage over the car in front, it's not going to help you as much as it would in other places. He's just got to harry Bernoldi in front of him, who has been passed, incidentally, by Jos Verstappen.
I often think a sense, I know if I had a car that was down the back end of the field and you've got a guy behind you who's out of position, you know he's going to get you in the end. His car is much faster, and often you can cause yourself a lot of loss of time by fighting the inevitable rather than just letting him through and letting him get on with it. But you know, that's a common sense mentality when you're out of the car. When the adrenaline's flowing in the car, you don't want to give anything, of course.
Human nature says they shall not pass. It's the Maginot Line philosophy. And Mika Häkkinen has just put up the fastest lap of the race. He was 2.5 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. He's closed it to 2 seconds. Now, can David Coulthard do anything about Bernoldi? Because Verstappen has. Verstappen's got past his teammate and he's pulling away from him. David Coulthard still 18th. He's got 12 places to gain before he even gets into the points.
And Häkkinen then another new fastest lap at 1:22.3. The gap now down to just 1.6 seconds. So Häkkinen regrouping, coming back at Michael. Does
just as quick, just as reliable as Ferrari now. And in Mika Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard, of course, you've got the finest drivers in the world. 2 of them up front. Schumacher leading the race. We're on lap 9. Here is the race order as they exit the tunnel at 180 miles an hour. Down to the chicane, round to the swimming pool. Michael Schumacher leads Häkkinen by 1.6 seconds, with Rubens Barrichello 3.9 seconds behind the leader, 3rd place. Ralf Schumacher is still 4th and dropping back. Eddie Irvine, magnificent 6th in the Jaguar. 6th is Trulli, 7th is Jack Villeneuve in the BAR. 8th Fisichella, 9th for Lacey and 10th Pettis.
Now 5th then for Irvine. Jenson Button down in 14th. Not too bad, started 18th. Up to 14th, would have gained 1 place with Coulthard's demotion from the grid. Nonetheless, Jenson having a reasonably strong race.
Notice as a matter of interest that the marshals look towards the racing, and some of them look away from the racing so that wherever there is a problem, they can spot it and get those flags out very quickly. Schumacher round the grand hairpin. Mika Häkkinen behind him, down to the portier. Häkkinen is definitely gaining on Michael Schumacher on lap 10 out of 78. The question is, can he gain enough? And if he can he get past the Ferrari? Doesn't look as though it has any sort of a problem to me. Now look back and you see Rubens Barrichello. So it's good as far as Ferrari are concerned, with first and third places in the constructors contest in the race. And Mika Häkkinen, of course, the only McLaren driver in the points. Ralf Schumacher's teammate is out of the race, Montoya. Eddie Irvine is 5th for Jaguar, and his teammate Pedro de la Rosa is down in 13th place. And Jarno Trulli in the Jordan Honda, 6th position, with his teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 12th position. We're riding with Olivier Panis now, chasing the Prost of Jean Alesi as they go round the swimming pool. And just look at this. This is the right-hander here. They take that at about 60 miles an hour on the apex, accelerate up to about 105 miles an hour. Down hard on the brakes and the gearbox into first gear, out of the Rascasse, which is just left now to the Anthony Nogue. Lap 11 out of 78 as you look at Jenson Button's Benetton coming towards us, pursued by Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, you were seeing the bubble they blew up there off the back of Jenson Button's Benetton was the gurney flap, the right angle flap that's on the rear wing that gives a bit of extra downforce, makes the air stay attached to the rear wing for longer, and then helps them. That will certainly affect the balance and the way that the back end of Button's car sticks to the racetrack. And that happened a couple of laps ago. Button then still down in 14th place. Coulthard making no impression on the field now, tucked up behind Bernoldi's arrows, and there you see it. Close enough, but in the dirty air, you get a bit of understeer. And the driver in front in a corner like Rascasse will always, of course, be on the throttle one car length before you, and the acceleration of these cars, you're going to have to try and outbrake him at the end of the straight. And of course, as you can see, it's one man at a time through a lot of these corners. And here we see Coulthard. Is he going to have a nibble up the inside into back? That would be a brave move. Running over that gurney flap there behind Coulthard's car, the gurney flap of Button's Benetton.
Well, all that David Coulthard can do, look how much Häkkinen has closed up on Michael Schumacher as they come through on their 12th lap. But all that David Coulthard can do is pressure Bernoldi. The Brazilian is inexperienced at Formula One. This is only his 7th race, but he's got a lot of racing miles behind him, and he's in the right place to just stay where he is and keep David Coulthard back. Schumacher leads, and Häkkinen's done a fastest lap. The lead is down to 1 second, and Michael Schumacher is now going to have to get past Luciano Berti with the yellow flash on his helmet in the blue Prost car. He is 20th. They're starting to lap them already on lap 13.
So that's a good scrap there. That'll be Panis, Raikkonen, Frentzen, De La Rosa. So you're looking at 10, 11, 12 and 13 with Jenson Button there just in the background.
And that's a very early stop for Panis. Turns into the pit lane. Hopefully we'll have a look and see what it is. I'm amazed that he's come in as early as this. Has he got a problem, or it's
definitely an unscheduled stop, Murray. No way you have a strategy and a problem with the right rear. Looks like they weren't really expecting him. He has come off the track very, very quickly. So Panis then, maybe he sensed a puncture. Maybe he's nerfed the barrier off. We think it could be a puncture. We're hearing from the F1 ITV pit crew, but let's see if he carries on. Sometimes if you've whacked the barrier, you go back out hoping it's all right. Turns out not to be. But Häkkinen then took 3/4 of a second out of Michael Schumacher last time. What's happened? Häkkinen's had a very, according to the computer, a very, very slow mid-sector. And yes, look, he's fallen away a lot, some 6 or 7 seconds.
Oh, hello.
And there's Häkkinen, look, and that was Barrichello we watched him. So Häkkinen then, very, very slow through the middle part of the previous lap.
And Barrichello, of course, up into 2nd place. Now, that's going to make it even stronger for Michael Schumacher, even harder for Mika Häkkinen. because with two Ferraris in front of him, although Rubens Barrichello will be as intent on winning this race as Michael Schumacher is, with Ferrari first and second, you can be very sure indeed that team orders will rule, and we know what team orders in Ferrari means. It means Schumacher wins if he gets the chance.
Well, Häkkinen was coasting out of the tunnel when we picked him up very late in his problem, so whether he's nerfed the barrier or whether he had some kind of ignition cut, we don't know. But he lost some 7 or 8 seconds in the middle of the previous lap, and that's why then Barrichello is up to P2, but he's 7 seconds behind Michael Schumacher.
P2, place 2, lap 14, Schumacher, Barrichello, 7 seconds between them. Mika Häkkinen 2 seconds further back. It's turning out to be a black race for the grey and black McLaren team. David Coulthard 17th, he's ahead of Marquez, he's still behind Benoldi, and Alonso in the Minardi is an excellent 15th.
Panis in the pits again, so maybe I was right on that. He did whack the wall at some stage, but Häkkinen 5 seconds slower again in the mid part of the lap. So some kind of fuel problem, Murray, and we think Häkkinen has pulled out of the race. So Häkkinen out of the race, bad day so far for McLaren. Coulthard down the back, Häkkinen out. James, what can you tell us?
Well, I'm down here, a complete surprise, his arrival in the pits. Steve Hallam, his chief engineer, was talking to him on the radio. Obviously something to do with the rear suspension they're looking at, maybe an ignition possibly problem, but they were giving him advice on different things he could try. He's hit the barrier, I think. Yes, they're checking the rear suspension to see if there's any damage. He's having problems steering the car, I believe. They were giving him advice over the radio, and suddenly he arrived, and the engine's still running, so he's still possibly, yes, they're going to get him out of it again. They think he's okay to continue.
But he's saying the car's not handling right, and let me tell you, you always, to the merest, finest degree, you know if the car's not right. So Häkkinen rejoins the track. They had a good old pull around on the suspension. He clearly thinks that in the middle of the racetrack, he's just not getting the balance and grip he needs, and it must be quite dramatic to make an unscheduled stop, Murray.
Well, yeah, not only that, but as you can see, David Coulthard is having a real go at Benoldi, saying to the Brazilian, let me by, and the Brazilian is saying, not on your life, I'm not going to let you by, I don't have to let you by. We are fighting for, as a result of that long stop and those 2 delays on the previous lap. He is 17th, David Coulthard is 16th. Michael Schumacher and Barrichello first and second, and the place is changing there at the chicane with Kimi Raikkonen going through.
Raikkonen's got a problem, so past goes Benoldi and Coulthard then. Raikkonen, I think, I just about hear it misfiring or something from the camera down at the corner there. And really at the end, David's just going to have a bit of a go at this guy. He's now getting to the point where he may as well risk losing a nose or a wheel, because he's losing some 2.5 seconds a lap. He's got to clear this Arrows.
Right, just a careful pause for deliberation now as you watch. Hello, here's yet another retirement. Into the pits comes the BAR,
Panis,
and it is Olivier Panis. So he joins Nick Heidfeld, he joins Montoya, he joins Panis. Is Mika Häkkinen going to be a retiree soon? Anyway, we're on lap 16 out of 78, and into the pits comes the Sauber of Kimi Raikkonen. They're refueling it, putting new tyres on. They might just as well. Now, out he will go. He was running in 9th place. He's down now to last.
Yeah, he's getting out of the car. I mean, it looks silly that they change the tyres and refuel it when you know there's probably an engine problem, but it's just procedure. It's an automatic procedure. Give it gas, give it tyres. That buys you a few seconds to talk about what the problem is and see if there's a fix. But I suspect some kind of engine problem. That if I heard the engine note right when they were over the far side of the track on that camera at the chicane.
Well, to describe the Monaco Grand Prix as a race of attrition, it always is a masterpiece of understatement. I mean, it's not at all unknown for only 5 cars to finish the distance, for only 3 of them to be on the same lap. It is a real car breaker. The concentration that the driver is required to have is massive, because there are all these corners. You are up to a maximum speed of 180 miles an hour through the tunnel, 20 miles an hour minimum round the grand hairpin. David Coulthard has still not got past Benoldi, but he's now moved up to 15th position as a result of the retirements. Nick Heidfeld, Montoya, Panis, Kimi Raikkonen, and Luciano Berti is running 18th and last into Casino Square.
Yeah, and Coulthard's quicker on the way out. Can he have a nibble down?
And I can tell you that you can't see it on the screen, but Mika Häkkinen is in the pits. His race looks as though it is run and as though there is only one McLaren on the circuit now. The one that you're looking at, David Coulthard, still, of course, second in the World Championship. The gap between himself and Rubens Barrichello. There is Mika Häkkinen. And Louise, what's the news?
As you can.
What's the news, Louise?
Well, I'm still here with Juan Pablo Montoya, Murray. Juan Pablo, your first Grand Prix here, short and not very sweet either. Tell us about the accident.
I just made a mistake. When I went back on the power, I was running wide in the chicane. I went left a bit early. When I went back in the power, the car understeer off, and I hit the curve in the right-hand side and just threw me into the wall.
When you lost the lead in Brazil, you accepted your fate with a smile. You walked back to the pits here with a face as black as thunder. Why were you so angry?
Because, I made a very silly mistake I shouldn't have done, but you learn from that.
Thanks, Juan Pablo.
There was a bit of a harouche in the Williams team, incidentally, between, as you're watching Mika Häkkinen steering wheel off, there was a bit of a harouche in the Williams team because the spare car had all that it's virtually impossible to get past. Mika Häkkinen retires from the Monaco Grand Prix. Yes, he's a previous winner in 1998. He was second in 99, but it has not been his luckiest circuit.
And this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. Just about the two slowest men on the racetrack are Bernaldi and Coulthard. And while Bernaldi's watching his mirrors and defending what is 14th place, he's just losing a bucket load of time. His mate Verstappen, who he was racing with for a while, is now up in 11th place, zooming through the field. It'd almost be better letting Coulthard go, stop the defensive driving, and get sucked along by Coulthard to catch the pack in front. But right at the moment, he wants to be the man who raced David Coulthard in a McLaren, and can't say as I blame him, but he's not using his brain.
Yeah, Jos Verstappen was 8th fastest in the warm-up this morning, and he started 19th on the grid. He's found something. Now, lap 19 out of 78, so there's 59 laps still to go. Michael Schumacher, Ferrari, leads Barrichello Ferrari by 7.5 seconds. Ralf Schumacher in the Williams is third, 20 seconds behind the leader. Eddie Irvine in the Jaguars moved up to 4th now. That's where he finished last year, 22 seconds adrift. Trulli is in 5th position in the Jordan Honda, 27 seconds behind. Jack Villeneuve is in 6th position in the BAR, looking good for another World Championship point, 28 seconds behind. Fisichella 7th, Alesi 8th, Frentzen 9th, and Pedro de la Rosa, 2nd Jaguar, is 10th. So both the Jaguars are in the top 10 places, maintaining their improvement as a result of the massively improved aerodynamic package they have here compared with previous races.
Yeah, good. People doing a good job out there. Irvine 4th, Trulli 5th, Villeneuve 6th, Fisichella 7th, and that is De La Rosa.
Yeah, as we talk about both the Jaguars being in the top 10, out goes De La Rosa. He stalled the engine, obviously.
Technical fault there, De La Rosa, knowing that's a smart place to park, away from the firing line of the cars, just catapulting through that first part of the swimming pool.
And of course that moves David Coulthard up a place to 14th, but it moves Bernaldi up to 13th. And still, the Scotsman cannot get past the Brazilian, Brown Saint-Devot.
The race director has instructed that, then he should not be receiving the blue flag. They are racing for position.
Yeah, they're fighting for track position, as you've pointed out already, and Bernaldi is perfectly entitled to go wherever he likes, provided he doesn't weave consistently and stop Coulthard getting past. He doesn't have to do that here. The marshal was out of order unless, as you suggest, he may have had direct instruction from Charlie Whiting, the race director.
Well, there's a line on the computer for car 17 to receive a wave blue flag, but that is Raikkonen and not Bernaldi. So I imagine that the marshals waved it at the wrong car, but you tell me where the numbers are on these cars.
Yeah, that's
you can't see them.
In which case Raikkonen has got back on the track after that problem that we saw earlier on. He's 4 laps down already. There are effectively 14 cars left in this race on the same lap, of which the 14th and last is David Coulthard, who's got past Marquez in the Minardi, Berti in the Prost, De La Rosa out of the race in the Jaguar. I thought Kimi Raikkonen was out. Mika Häkkinen certainly is. Olivier Panis certainly is in the BAR. Montoya is, and Nick Heidfeld is. So not a good race for Sauber so far. Not a good race for Williams. Not a good race for BAR. Terrible race for McLaren, who are so strong in the Constructors' Championship. McLaren are 18 points behind Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship, and at the present moment Ferrari are on a possible 14 World Championship points in the Constructors' contest, compared with McLaren with nobody in the first 6. So we're looking at the possibility of Ferrari striding away in the Constructors' Championship, and of course Michael Schumacher extending his lead over David Coulthard if he finishes where he is in first place. Well, Martin, copybook demonstration so far for Michael Schumacher, who had the good fortune from his point of view to see David Coulthard failing to get fired up.
Running in the 1:21, the fastest man on the track last time around, and he's got a further 12 seconds advantage over third-place man Ralf Schumacher, who's beginning to come under pressure, is Ralf Schumacher, from Eddie Irvine.
Yeah, now let's talk about Bernaldi there and David Coulthard. I mean, the Brazilian's in his first Monaco Grand Prix. He's got the old racing red mist going. He's determined to keep the arrows on track. Do you think he'll realise the situation with David Coulthard, or is he just saying, I've got one of the best people in Grand Prix driving behind me, he's going to stay there?
Well, he's 2.5 seconds a lap slower than his teammate now, Bernaldi, and he is clearly losing time watching David Coulthard, and he's just holding the pair of them up, as I've said before. It's just wrecking the race, really.
Well, they are now, Bernaldi and Coulthard, some 71 seconds behind the race leader, and David Coulthard continues to shove his rear wing under the gearbox of Bernaldi, and now he looks again. Bernaldi knows what's going to happen, and he moves across. So we're on lap 24 now, out of 78, and the mice are getting at the machinery. There's been quite a few retirements. Nick Heidfeld is out in the Sauber, Montoya is out in the Williams, Panis in the BAR, Mika Hakkinen has retired, a previous race winner here at Monte Carlo retired the McLaren. Pedro de la Rosa has stopped the second Jaguar when he was in the top 10, he stopped in the swimming pool area. Kimi Raikkonen is still staggering round in the second Sauber. Not a good race for the Swiss team, but he's 4 laps behind. Effectively, there are 16 cars and drivers out of the 22 who started, of whom the last is Luciano Berti in the Prost. He's been lapped. Tasso Marquez in the European Minardi has been lapped. He's 15th. David Coulthard still, after all these laps, hasn't been able to get past Enrique Bernaldi. He's in 14th place. Top 10. Michael Schumacher, Barry Keller, Ralf Schumacher, Eddie Irvine, a magnificent 4th in the Jaguar, Trulli 5th, Villeneuve 6th, then it's Fisichella, Alesi, Frentzen and Verstappen.
Yeah, the sadness is Coulthard is losing 3 seconds a lap now, stuck behind Bernaldi. The pair of them still the slowest cars on the racetrack. He just cannot clear him. And the irony of that, Murray, is Coulthard's the next man to be lapped. So as soon as Schumacher arrives, the blue flags will be waving. He'll have to leap out of the way, otherwise he'll get a stop and go. But that's when that's probably his best chance of launching past his arrows, which appears to be able to break just late enough to prevent Coulthard getting anywhere near passing him. And there is Michael Schumacher homing in to lap Coulthard.
Yeah, now there's only about 4 or 5 seconds between them on the track. There is 74 seconds between them in terms of time. So Bernaldi, who is in 13th place, Coulthard, who is in 14th place. The next one round the corner you'll see is race leader. Here he is, Michael Schumacher, got an enormous lead, and basically what Michael Schumacher has got to do now is keep it going, because he's 14 seconds in a product group, and that is Luciano Berti, who has stopped at Sandoval. There is the statue of the Williams Bugatti in the background I was telling you about. Let's see what happened to Luciano Berti. Well, he just stops, turns left. He's obviously got a mechanical problem.
And that he had a bizarre accident there, didn't he, on Saturday when his brakes failed totally. Ended up having to bury it in the tyres so as not to run underneath a breakdown truck a long way down that escape road. So that is not Luciano Berti's favourite corner.
Yeah, that bloke down at Saint-Devote sort of listlessly waving the blue flag. I really don't know why he's doing that of his own initiative, and Coulthard goes for it now.
I think the same way. He's got to clear the arrows. The arrows, as demonstrated quite clearly, it will just turn across his nose, and he'll have to nerf it as his only chance. I bet he wish he got a slightly longer point on that nose and just give him a little kiss into one of these corners, because he's got to clear past it.
Yeah, and even if he does that, the gap between himself and the next bloke down the line is Fernando Alonso. Incidentally, the European Minardi driver. And there he goes! David Coulthard and Michael Schumacher together, and Schumacher has now lapped David Coulthard in his closing up on Bernoldi.
I think we've got a pretty disgruntled Coulthard there, because he didn't need to let Schumacher go that early. That's giving a lot of help, a lot of respect, but he needed to be right there when Schumacher passed the arrows. So for me, it was his best shot to pass the arrows. Now he's got a better running, but in no way can outbrake him into Saint-Devote, I don't think.
Martin, you know David Coulthard as a man and a friend and a colleague better than most of him. What will be his mindset now? Despair or determination?
I think he'll be angry at whatever happened on the start line, angry to see Michael Schumacher just to rub a lot of salt in the wounds. Louise, what can you tell us?
Well, I'm sitting with Mika Häkkinen, who's just arrived back in the paddock. Mika, was it a car problem? Did you hit the barrier? Can you tell us what happened?
I didn't hit any barrier or anything. Corner went on the gas. Some reason pulled on the right. But the team is checking it what it is. Extremely unusual problem, you see.
It's turning into a nightmare day for McLaren. What's the best that David can hope for today?
Score points.
Thanks very much.
There could be pulling right with a differential problem or drive shaft problem. If it's only pulling right on the power, then it's something in the powertrain clearly. But as Mika said, that's an extremely unusual problem.
Yeah, now it's the 5th race that Mika Häkkinen has failed to finish this year. He didn't finish in Australia, in Brazil, in Spain, in Austria. Now he hasn't finished at Monaco. He hasn't been on a podium this year. He's only had a 4th place at Imola and 6th place in Malaysia. So it's looking bad for Mika Häkkinen. Ron Dennis, of course, the team boss at McLaren, has consistently said there are no team orders at McLaren, and there aren't going to be until it is mathematically impossible for one of our drivers to win the championship. Then he will defer to the other. Well, David Coulthard is a long way ahead of Häkkinen. It looks as though that might start to happen, or have to think of happening. But anyway, James Allen has news.
Yeah, Murray, we heard Mika there saying it's an unusual problem that he has with the steering. But what's extremely unusual is that Olivier Panis has retired with the same thing. Now, I don't know if it's anything to do with these tyres that we've got this year or what's going on, but both Olivier Panis and Mika Häkkinen had weird steering problems that have put them out of the race very early on.
Well, Michelin were looking much better here than they have in most of the races in the past, and that's a comment and not a criticism, because of course they won at the Imola the San Marino Grand Prix with Ralf Schumacher. David Coulthard still tucked up behind Bernoldi as we look back down the track to see who the next one. Now, meantime, Heinz-Harald Frentzen has got the message. We haven't heard much about him. He's in 9th position behind Jean Alesi. He's just made the fastest lap of the race. He's going very quickly indeed in the Jordan Honda. But Schumacher still leads. In fact, he's extending his lead consistently over Rubens Barrichello. It's now 13 seconds, and Ralf Schumacher is lapping quicker than the second Ferrari. He's closed up a bit to within 12 seconds of Rubens Barrichello's second. Eddie Irvine still 4th. Jarno Trulli in the Jordan Honda 5th, and Jacques Villeneuve in the BA.
Just from nowhere.
We're on lap 30 out of 78. We've got another 9 laps before we've reached the 50% mark. As we look down, and Frentzen Trulli in 5th place being pursued by Villeneuve, and Fisichella is in 6th position. Now, another thing in this race and this season is the fact that Fisichella and Button are together in the Benetton team. A lot of people, and I think I was actually one of them, were expecting Jenson Button to show Fisichella the way this season. That hasn't happened at all. And Giancarlo Fisichella, in a car which certainly hasn't got the performance of a lot of the others in front, has done a terrific job this season. He's refused to admit that things can't go well. He got a point in Brazil. He's finished in a lot of races, but now look at him. The young Italian is in 7th position. This is a man, of course, who has led a Grand Prix. He led the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim when he was with the Jordan team, Giancarlo Fisichella, and that was in 1997. As we come back again to the... Oh, no, we don't. We come back to Ralf Schumacher, 3rd position. We haven't seen much of the Williams BMW. This is the San Marino Grand Prix winner, the highest Michelin-tired competitor in the Monaco Grand Prix, and he is 25 seconds behind Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, Fisichella 3rd here, of course, last year, Murray. He does tend to be a Monaco specialist as well. Giancarlo always gone very well around here, and up there in 7th place at the moment, as you say, and keeping Villeneuve very much in his sights.
Oh, who's that? That's a Jordan. That's a Jordan. Now, let's have a look at it. Out he leads, and it's Jarno Trulli. Out go the fire extinguishers. Jarno Trulli, and he was the highest Jordan. He was in 7th position, just off the leaderboard. Now, here's a replay.
Yeah, it's an oil fire, so a piston ring or something like that, or an oil line blown off. Probably, I would suspect more likely an oil line or something off under the engine cover there, catching fire on the exhaust pipes, so quite clearly then Trulli out of the race.
And he had the old rocket-propelled thighs there, straight out of the cockpit. And who can blame him? He will have seen that great gout of flame in his mirrors. Back again to a continuation point in the Monaco Grand Prix. No laughing matter for David Coulthard. He will be grimly determined and utterly frustrated as they come out of the Rascasse corner up into what is laughingly called the finishing straight here, but which is actually a long, shallow curve. And this is Heinz-Harald Frentzen seeing what happened to his teammate Jarno Trulli. I don't know whether he'll have time to realise that it was a Jordan, his teammate, hidden in that fire extinguisher foam and cloud. So, Ferrari leads, Ferrari 2nd, Williams BMW 3rd, and David Coulthard slows right down and is being... But, you know, it does say on the computer screen the blue flags are waving for him. If you pass 3 of them, you get a stop-and-go penalty. So he knows he has to be courteous. I think he's probably being a touch more courteous than he really needs to be. Well, you said, Martin, that David Coulthard's next opportunity to attack Bernaldi, hopefully successfully from his point of view, would be when Rubens Barrichello came up to lap him. He let Barrichello through, he dropped back. Bernaldi is still ahead. Here's a replay.
Yeah, you see, he needs to let the next one ease his way through before, and just sort of tuck him behind him and then pick up the pieces, because Bernaldi's being quite kind too. And that's DC's best opportunity. Who's next down there? Ralf Schumacher, but certainly 11 seconds away. But this pair are lapping 3 to 4 seconds a lap slow sometimes, so Ralf will be here anytime soon.
And what, of course, David Coulthard is doing now is pursuing the adage, never give up, as we look at Eddie Irvine alone on the track. 5 seconds.
Just have him off, David. I want to see these guys come through the field. We want to see some action. We don't want to see just blocking and people going slowly at the back of the field.
Well, meantime, here are the top 10. You know that Schumacher's leading, you know that Barrichello is 2nd, so that's 1st for Ferrari, 2nd Ferrari. Gap, 17 seconds. Ralf Schumacher is closing up a bit on Rubens Barrichello. He's actually taken a second out of his lead. He's now in 9th place. And one of the Williams teams said to me before the race began, the hotter it is here, the better our Michelin tyres are going to like it. It's 38 degrees here. Bernaldi and Coulthard.
Pretty much covered that one, and that's Fisichella recovering from a spin at, what is that? It's the Saint Devote, isn't it? So
yeah, that's right. You can see the crane hook there. Is that Fisichella off out. Does he hit it? Oh, bang! Out goes the Benetton, and Giancarlo Fisichella.
He might get away with that one. He might just get away with that one because he nerfed it nice and square on into the tyres. So Fisichella might just survive.
Well, he was 7 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi. Now, we've got the prospect in this race at the present moment as Schumacher comes through and laps Tarso Marquez, who is 14th and last in the European Minardi. Both of them still running, incidentally, because Alonso is now in 11th place. The highest that a Minardi has finished this season was Tarso Marquez, 9th place in Brazil. They may well improve on that because Alonso is 11th, and we've still got more than half the race to go. But as I was saying, David Coulthard could do nothing about Bernaldi. Alonso is ahead of both of them. Jenson Button is now in the top 10 in the Benetton, and we'll have to just wait and see whether Giancarlo Fisichella managed to keep going. Well, there's the Benetton. Now, Fisichella is, you were quite right, Martin. That's Fisichella, that's Alesi. Behind Alesi is Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So Fisichella managed to keep going and is still in the 6th position. He did not lose track position. Lap 37, just about half distance of the 78-lap Monaco Grand Prix, and Giancarlo Fisichella has retained his 6th place in the Benetton. There you see, this is a replay of him running wide at Saint-Devote. He hits the barrier, first of all with the left, and then the rear, and then the left front. Yeah,
and he does survive that little skirmish because he went in nice and square on into the tyres, and the front end touching was not too bad either, and again quite square. So Fisichella kept the engine running, the anti-stall working nicely for him, and 5th place with a new fastest lap, and once again David being extremely courteous.
Yeah, David is being hyper polite. It's almost as though, I mean, this is a ludicrous statement I'm about to make. It's almost as though he's sort of closing up to Bernaldi and then dropping back a bit to have the pleasure of recatching him.
Yeah, hang on a minute though. Actually, this time around, now he is tucked up the rear wing of the Williams, and he might just get his chance this time around. I hope they hone back in on that, the TV directors there. He managed to tuck straight back in behind Ralph, and Ralph was a little bit too far away to immediately be wanting to pass Bernaldi, so maybe this time around it'll work out.
Lap 38, race order, Ferrari, Schumacher, Barrichello, gap 14 seconds, Williams, BMW 3rd, and there are Bernaldi and Coulthard, and Schumacher is pulling away from both of them, so David's missed his opportunity, unless he can get it here at Saint-Devote, which I very much doubt. Indeed, he does not do so, because Bernaldi again tucks in tight. Coulthard has got the power, and there is Schumacher at the swimming pool section, lapping Bernaldi, who immediately moves back ahead and in front of David Coulthard's McLaren. Half-distance lap we're on now.
Yeah, if I know David, I don't think he's got much interest at the moment. He's certainly not attacking. We've seen him go around the inside, outside of Michael Schumacher, often as he pleases, but today I think whatever happened on the start line has pretty much put him in the wrong frame of mind.
Any dialogue between him and the pit lane, do you think?
No, I mean, there's nothing they can do. They can't go down to Arrows and say, let our man through, because they're racing for position. And of course, they wouldn't dream of doing that. But no, I think he's out there on his own. He's still probably, I don't know, 20 laps away from his stop. So we're not even half distance in the race yet. But he needed to be moving earlier if he wanted a chance of some points. Now, James Allen's in the pits.
Yeah, I'm standing behind the McLaren timing wall, and they've been thinking exactly the same way as you guys have been thinking. If he can tuck himself up behind the leaders as they come through to pass, maybe he can dive through on the inside of Bernaldi. And every time he's failed to do that, they've punched the desk. There's very little dialogue actually going on generally. Shoulders are down a little bit on this timing wall, as you can imagine. There's very little they can do. It's enormously. I can feel their frustration. It's very intense.
New lap record for Michael Schumacher, who's just demonstrating how much he's in charge of this race. Previously it was Mika Häkkinen in the year 2000. 1 minute 21.571, and that's a speed of over 92 miles an hour. Michael Schumacher has just gone round a second quicker than that, almost 120.770, and so they are all its corners, twists, turns and gradients.
Now Schumacher, now Coulthard rather, is tucked up behind Irvine. Fourth place man's lapped him. Can he use Irvine to get past the arrows? So we'll have to wait and see. Pit stop getting ready then for Benetton. We know both Benettons are in the race, of course. Button in 10th and Fisichella in 6th, so we don't know which one's coming in first.
Well, I said David Coulthard must never ever give up, and he won't do so. He may be in 13th place, but if he can just get past some more people and get up into 6th position, that will give him 1 World Championship point. And a World Championship has been won in the past by half a point. 1984, when Niki Lauda beat Alain Prost by just half a point, because paradoxically, Prost in winning the Monaco Grand Prix here in 1984, and look how close David Coulthard is now. Prost in winning the Monaco Grand Prix here when it was cut short because of the weather, which was appalling, only got half of standards. Even though he's put up the fastest lap of the race, he's been having an iron grip on it the whole time, and he may therefore be coming in for fuel and tyres later than he had originally planned. Ross Brawn, the Ferrari tactician and technical director of the Maranello concern, will be sitting on the pit lane gantry watching everything like a hawk, with John Tutt, the Ferrari team manager, alongside him. They will be planning and watching. That is Jean Alesi going through, pursued by Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Maybe that's what's waking Heinz-Harald Frentzen up, Martin. He's now in 8th place. You can see how close he is to Jean Alesi's Ferrari-powered Prost.
Yeah, but he's going second a lap slower now, despite a lower fuel load than he did when he set that, at that time, a new lap record some 8 or 9 laps ago. But Alesi then having a very good race up there in 7th. So we've got some unusual players. We haven't seen much of them. Irvine in 4th, Alesi up in 7th. That's very nice to see.
So how are the teams doing? Ferrari doing very well, thank you, 1st and 2nd. McLaren doing terribly, Hakkinen out of the race, and David Coulthard down in 13th place, 7 positions off the points. Williams, well, reasonable. Ralf Schumacher is in a fine 3rd place. Montoya is out of the race. Jaguar, very good indeed, because they've yet to score World Championship points. Looks as though they could do so in this race if Eddie Irvine repeats his success of last year in finishing 4th. Martin?
Yeah, we're just going to take you through that onboard stuff, Murray, but hey, we're back on board again. So you lump the curb there, you have to hook up with that curb in the second part of the swimming pool. You brake much earlier for Rascasse, you just cruise in there really. If you brake late and downshift, you'll lose the back of the car. It's so easy just to turn in a fraction and slap the barriers through these corners, and it almost catches you by surprise. You don't, because the rear of the car is wider than the front as you're turning through there. Often you just whack them as you go through. You thought you were clear, and it just pushes the car around or rips the suspension off.
Vassenet coming up, 85 miles an hour, 3rd gear into Casino Square, with the casino itself on the right, as Frentzen chases Alesi down the hill to thump the barrier in 1988 and went off to his apartment nearby in a huff, into the tunnel and out of it at 180 miles an hour.
And that's really how dark it looks when you're in the car, believe me, it is amazing. But Michael Schumacher's just done a new lap record again. He's playing around at the front, 18.3 second lead, and just whenever he fancies it, when he's getting bored, he pops in a supersonic lap. So Michael well in control.
Yeah, let's just remind ourselves what he's done this year. Victory in Australia, victory in Malaysia, 2nd place in Brazil. He wasn't in the points, of course, at the San Marino Grand Prix, but then he came back and won at the Spanish Grand Prix. 2nd in Australia after having been beautifully beaten by David Coulthard. And David Coulthard, I said earlier on, the only man at the beginning of this race who had scored points in every Grand Prix of 2001, is going to be struggling to maintain that record. As into the pits comes Jos Verstappen in the arrows from 9th position.
So the first scheduled stop of the afternoon, then I would imagine this one is, Murray, and looks like Arrows are going for a two-stopper or certainly a very long second stint. Let's have a look and see how long they fuel for, and it's
bit of a discussion going on there. I thought this might be happening, Martin, because he was so much conspicuously faster in the warm-up in comparison with his race place. I mean, he started 19th on the grid and he was 8th in the warm-up. But whatever, there's a problem. Not a problem for Benoldi as far as keeping Coulthard back, because yet again, and this is the 44th lap out of 78, and still David Coulthard, despite his horsepower advantage, despite his superior experience, despite, frankly, his superior ability, can do nothing about Benoldi, and James Allen can tell us something.
Well, there's a glimmer of hope for him, though, Murray, because we know that the Arrows has the smallest fuel tank in Formula One, and this is about as far as I reckon as they can actually go in this race. So Benoldi will be coming in very shortly, I'm sure, for fuel, and that will allow Coulthard finally to pass him.
James, Fisichella then has gone off for a second time in Sandevot and clearly will not be getting away with it this time. Serious amount of toe out on that front left. Look there, Murray, and Fisichella finally outbraking himself into Sandevot, and this time connecting too hard with that barrier.
Yes, taking that into your friendly garage and saying, can you correct the steering for me, would be a major problem. Fisichella deserved better than that. He'd already done it once. He probably weakened the suspension. He's lost it again at exactly the same place.
Interestingly, Verstappen had just left the pit, so whether Fisichella was just wrong-footed by the Arrows building up to speed, or whether he just lost his concentration or whatever, I don't know, but he actually lost the back end on the way into Sandevot, unusually again, and then finally slapped it with the front.
Well, I can tell you that the Arrows team are now getting ready to bring Enrique Benoldi, who has been holding David Coulthard up for most of the race, into the pits for his scheduled pit stop. We've just seen Verstappen come in. You can see that stuff still fluttering from the left auxiliary wheel, and here is Benoldi. So at last David Coulthard has got a clear track, so he's ahead of Verstappen. His next target has got to be Fernando Alonso. He's lapping on the previous lap some 0.7 of a second faster, but then he was behind Benoldi, so now he will really be able to get cracking.
Despite Benoldi having a yellow lollipop right in his field of vision, he was still trying to drive away with the fuel rig still very much connected, so Benoldi a touch over-eager there.
So Ferrari, who, I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again, Ferrari, who were in the wilderness for a long time and did so much under the leadership of Luca Di Montezemolo to regain their previous glory in Grand Prix racing, the sort of glory that they'd had with Alberto Ascari, with Juan Manuel Fangio, with double Ferrari world champion Niki Lauda and others. But it's a slow, long and painful job to rebuild a Grand Prix team, as Jaguar are discovering to their cost. And Ferrari had, first of all, to recruit Michael Schumacher and Ross Brawn as their technical director, Rory Byrne as their designer and aerodynamics chief, and Jean Todt as team manager. And then they all had to learn to work together. And let me not forget Piero Martinelli, their engine man. It is a great quartet at the top of Ferrari, and they're getting their reward now. Constructors' Championship in the year 1999 and 2000. The Drivers' Championship for Michael Schumacher last year, and the previous gap had gone right back to Jody Scheckter in 1979. And now Michael Schumacher, who started this race 4 points ahead of David Coulthard in the drivers' contest, if he finishes where he is now, and he's on lap 47 out of 78, so there's 31 laps to go, and Michael Schumacher has failed to finish in races much closer to the finish than he is now. But assuming he stays where he is now, of course he's going to increase his championship lead over David Coulthard by 10 points, because flying as David Coulthard may be, he's going to have to work very hard to get up into the points. He's 10th at the moment. As you look at Eddie Irvine, still 4th, Schumacher is 7 seconds ahead of him, Ralf Schumacher, and Jacques Villeneuve is 6 seconds behind him.
New lap record for David Coulthard then, a 1:20.2, and it just shows you the speed he had in the car this afternoon. That is some 4.5 seconds faster than he was able to lap, tucked up behind the arrows, and now immediately homing in on 9th place man Fernando Alonso. But he is some half a minute behind Jenson Button, who's 8th.
And just remember what a fantastic race David Coulthard drove in Brazil to win it, his first victory of this year. And then he went on to win again in Austria. David has won a lot of races in the past. He's had a lot of pole positions in the past. But somehow, it's going to be a surprising thing for you to hear from me, but somehow he didn't quite seem to have it all together the way that he has this year. There has been some sort of transformation, and I think it's a mental thing, a psychological thing, an attitudinal thing. Maybe David's got more belief in himself this year than he had last year, but whatever, that belief is going to have to pay off now as into the pits comes the Minardi. Past goes Jacques Villeneuve in 5th position, and David Coulthard has just done the fastest first sector that anybody has done. He's showing now what he could have done if only he had been able to get away first from pole position.
Yes, and he's passed Alonso in that last lap somewhere. Amazingly, he was some 8 seconds faster than Alonso on the last lap. So Alonso, I think, getting out of the way because he was being lapped by Villeneuve, and Coulthard just searing straight through, and already on a 20.6 second first sector DC now on the charge we all wanted to see much earlier in this race.
Yeah, he's been lapped, of course, which means to say, surprise, surprise, he will have to do 1 lap less than the people ahead of him in the points, because Michael Schumacher is on his 49th lap now, and it's conceivable that David Coulthard will finish this race. It's not inconceivable that he's going to finish it in the points, because his next target is Jenson Button, and David Coulthard's last lap was 5 seconds faster than that of Jenson Button. So it's not going to take him all that long to reel in the Benetton.
Now you see, Coulthard had to let Villeneuve through with the blue flags because he was tucked up behind Bernoulli. Now he's catching Villeneuve again at some 1.5 to 2 seconds per lap. So Jacques, of course, won't get the blue flag. He's a lap ahead of David. So Coulthard's got a whole different set of problems now of trying to pass cars that are a lap ahead of him.
Lap 49, race order, Schumacher, Barrichello, gap 15.6 seconds. Ralf Schumacher's making no impression on Barrichello, let alone his brother Michael, but he's still in 3rd position, potential podium place, as in comes Fernando Alonso, that we saw pull over and the exit to Rascasse and let David Coulthard through. In for his European Minardi pit stop, boils up the tyres, sprints out, very slow speed limit here. That's Giancarlo Fisichella, the Benetton driver, out of the race, and Jenson Button, his teammate, is in 8th position. Now, Eddie Irvine is still 4th, Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR is still 5th, and Irvine is actually lapping faster than the BAR. Jean Alesi is in the points, so potentially, with things as they are now, we can envisage a situation where Jaguar get their first World Championship points this season, and Prost get their first World Championship points, or a point this season, with Alesi in 6th position. And in both cases, it will have been richly deserved. They all deserve.
This time from Michael Schumacher, 1:20.193. And as I said, he's playing around in the front there, just amusing himself. He got a 16.7 second lead, so Barrichello not letting him disappear completely. And Barrichello a further 15 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher, the 3rd place man. Really not much of a scrap going on until you get down to 6th, Alesi, and 7th, just 1 second behind, is Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Yeah, this race actually, Martin, does put me in mind of 1988. Ayrton Senna's first season with the McLaren Honda team, his bitterness between himself and Alain Prost, his teammate, yet to develop. But Senna, who's won more Monaco Grand Prix than anybody, he's won 6 of them, was leading that race, but Prost kept up the pressure and he rattled Senna, who lost concentration because he had such a lead. Going into the tunnel, he crashed and he was out of the event. I can't see that happening to Michael Schumacher, though.
You never know. And Michael then now in the 1 minute 19s. Stunning, 1 minute 19.770. So he's decided that it's time he put on a bit of a show. We've hardly seen him in the race, have we?
No, and that 1 minute 19.7 is 8:10. Hello, that's the other Jordan. That is Heinz Harald Frentzen, 7th position out of the race. That moves Button up to 7th, and significantly it moves David Coulthard up to 8th. That means to say that David is in with a shout of getting a World Championship point, at least one.
I wonder, and apparently Villeneuve's let Coulthard through. They're good mates, and that's a good turn from him. I wonder if Frentzen was having a go at Lacey. He was just a second behind, remember, or if Frentzen's dropped it in the tunnel. You can still end up all the way down there if you get out of shape in the tunnel and slap the wall. Hopefully we'll see a replay of that. That is Barrichello then, your second place man. So Coulthard suddenly, as you say, Murray, does have a bit of a shot at a few points.
Yep, 13 left out of the 22 starters. Orders in order of retirement. Nick Heidfeld, Sauber. Montoya, Williams, Panis, BAR, Mika Hakkinen, McLaren, De La Rosa, Jaguar, Bertie, Prost, Jarno Trulli, Jordan, Fisichella in the Benetton. Kimi Räikkönen is actually still running 13th, because we have just seen Heinz Harald Frentzen out of 7th place, as a result of which the Finnish Sauber driver moves up a place. He's last, he's 13th, but he's still running, and the other 12 are lap 52, 26 laps to go of this 2.1 mile race. Schumacher, Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher, the first three, James Allen.
Well, it looks as though it might have worked out a little bit for Coulthard. He's not had an awful lot of luck so far this afternoon, but Jenson Button just made his pit stop, and I do believe that David Coulthard is now up into 7th place, just a minute off the points, and the Lacey now pouring into the pit lane just behind me. He'll be back out in front of David Coulthard, but it's game on. I reckon Coulthard can run about another 4 or 5 laps, and we're expecting the Ferraris in around about the same sort of time.
Yeah, Schumacher and Barrichello ought to be reliable. You're watching Jean Alesi now, quite a calm and deliberate pit stop.
Left rear of Alesi's Michelin, they're absolutely bald as a coupe. The one that came off, no grooves left on it whatsoever. That is, I don't think they'll have any regulation problems on that. There's been an understanding on that situation, so Alesi using his tyres to the absolute full. And we're about to see Frentzen have a shunt. He's lost it in the tunnel, hasn't he? Because he has his accident before he gets to the chicane. So
replay coming up. That was a Lacey going through.
He's down the bottom of the hill at Murray, so we're in the cloud of dust. So still didn't really see quite how and where he hit the barrier first, but I suspect he dropped it in the tunnel.
Well, if Alesi finishes in the points, it will be enormous encouragement for Prost. They've had a very torrid time since the 4 times world champion took over leadership of what was the Ligier team. This year he's got Ferrari engines after having seasons with the unsuccessful Peugeot engine, which ironically is doing much better with arrows now in the form of Asia Tech engine. It's been bought by a Japanese consortium from Peugeot, and so now the Prost, which you are seeing being caught by Rubens Barrichello to lap Jean Alesi, has a Ferrari engine, although it's called an Acer after the sponsor. And Alain Prost has got a fine team of people together. Alesi moves over and lets Rubens Barrichello lap him. So the first 2 have now lapped everybody up to 5th place, the 5th place being Jacques Villeneuve. And the men that Alain Prost have recruited are Joan Villadel-Prat to be the team leader, Henry Durand from McLaren to be the technical director, John Walton to be the race director, and it is starting slowly to pay off.
Tell you what, these drivers are getting murdered on the North Circular around London. They're so polite. I mean, Alesi pulled right off onto the dirty part of the track at Rascasse, and that'll take him 2 laps to clean his tyres up. He lost a bundle of time letting Barrichello through. Once again, seriously polite, but why didn't you just let them blend past you on the pit straight?
Yep, indeed. So now you are seeing the sole Räikkönen, of course, is several laps down. Bernoldi has been lapped twice. Kimi Räikkönen has been lapped 5 times, but he's still running in 14th and last position. Through goes Michael Schumacher. He's on his 55th lap now. What he must be saying to himself, of course, is keep it smooth, keep away from the barriers, cap him, and potentially Montoya lost a victory in Brazil.
Ferrari mechanics in the pit lane then, so we'll wait and see which one's coming in this time around. But you know, when Michael beat me here in '94, he hit a patch of oil just near the end and had a little rub with the barrier at Saint-Devote and got away with it. And you know, it's never over until it's over, and Mika Häkkinen can confirm that, of course, after his Spanish Grand Prix debacle. That piece of ribbon or whatever it is that's hanging on the back of Michael's car has been there virtually since the first lap.
Yeah, someone will probably sell it after the race. This is the piece of ribbon that you saw hanging from the wing of Michael Schumacher's victorious Monaco Grand Prix Ferrari, if he was victorious, because we're on lap 55 now, 23 laps to go. In comes Michael Schumacher. Barrichello will take the lead, 18 seconds behind him in terms of track position, but then he will have to come in. There you go, there you see Rubens Barrichello in the background as Michael Schumacher goes up to exit the pit lane. Rubens Barrichello goes through to start another lap in the lead now. So Ferrari still leads, Ferrari still second, but the position's reversed. It's Rubinho from Sao Paulo, Brazil, leading Michael Schumacher from Kerpen in Germany, still on 16 World Championship points for the Constructors' Contest, massively to extend their lead for him after all the misery that he's already suffered in this race, not being able to get away, having to start last, having to be bottled up behind Benoldi. Look at the tyre wear there. Michelin said when they were coming back to Formula One, they might be protesting if tyres were no longer grooved. All the tyres have 4 grooves in them to reduce the amount of rubber on the track and thereby reduce the amount of grip in order to slow the cars down. The governing body is always worried that Grand Prix cars will be too fast for the circuits, and if those tyres become slicks, there's a danger that they'll go even quicker. But that is not happening. Through goes new race leader Rubens Barrichello. Michael Schumacher will be the next man through because he exited the pit lane just after his teammate had gone through. But Rubinho, who won the German Grand Prix brilliantly last year at Hockenheim from 18th on the grid, a superlative performance, can say that he has led at Monaco. How long it's going to be before he has to come in remains to be seen. There's not going to be very much difference between the time that Barrichello stayed out and the time that Schumacher stayed out.
Yes, Coulthard's charge. That's Villeneuve pitting then for a scheduled stop, I would imagine. Coulthard's charge has been halted slightly by Eddie Irvine. Of course, Irvine lapped Coulthard earlier in the race. Now Coulthard's clear of Benoldi. As I said before, he's now charging and got a different problem of trying to pass people who are 1 lap ahead of him. And that is...
Well, that's the Minardi. So that's Fernando Alonso. Rotten luck for Paul Stoddart and his team. Here's a replay of what happens as Alonso, knowing that the game is up, pulls off the circuit to park the Minardi. His teammate Tasso Marquez is 3 laps down, but he is still running. 19 years old, incidentally, Alonso. A very proud Spaniard. You saw the Spanish colours on his helmet there. As we now look at Ralf Schumacher in 3rd position. And Eddie Irvine is actually catching the Williams. I don't know what's happened. Neither of them have been in for a pit stop, but Eddie has closed the gap down to 3.5 seconds. It's not inconceivable, although there's some way to go, that the Jaguar could not only be in the points, but on the podium. That would be a fantastic encouragement.
There's Ralph then, and then Eddie Irvine just behind him, and the recovering Coulthard also then behind. There they go, all 3 of them coming up the hill then. So 3rd place man, Ralf Schumacher, Eddie Irvine 4th, Coulthard now a lap down in 7th position. Irvine on a charge, the gap down to just 2.8 seconds, Murray.
Yeah, and dramatic and interesting indeed. There is Eddie Irvine, behind him David Coulthard. And Jacques Villeneuve has left the pits. He's been in for that pit stop. Into the tunnel they go.
Ralph's slow. Ralph's definitely losing some time on his pace earlier on. Look, that gap that was 2.8 at the pit straight last time around. Look at it now. It's just a few tenths.
Eddie well here in the past. 3rd in 1998, 2nd in 99, 4th for Jaguar last year. He's 4th at the moment. He could be 3rd because he's right up behind. He's passed. He's passed. Eddie Irvine is in a podium position for Jaguar. Oh, I know, the whole of Britain will be having their fingers crossed as in comes Ralf Schumacher, clearly with a problem. But is it a terminal problem?
I wonder if he's got some kind of...
Shaking his head.
One of his, I mean, he's a long ways, 58, left 59. James, what can you tell us? Do you think it's fuel?
Yeah, as he came past me, it was definitely the engine was cutting out and he was punching the steering wheel as if that would help. I think they call it percussive maintenance. But anyway, the rear tyres came off. They were completely slick, as were the other ones you noticed earlier on, Martin. But definitely some form of engine problem. Could have been lacking fuel, but it sounded a bit more... they're trying to get it started again now. The rear wheels are spinning. It sounds unhealthy, but he may get going. I don't know.
Well, anyway... Ralf Schumacher retires from the Monaco Grand Prix. It is his 5th retirement in 7 races, and Montoya, of course, was long since out, so not a race that Williams will want to remember. And funnily enough, they've only won here twice. Keke Rosberg won 1 year, and Williams have always had a bad time at Monaco by their very high standards. Remember when Nigel Mansell retired, Damon Hill. But now it's Michael Schumacher out on his own not out on his own, behind Rubens Barrichello still, who leads the race. The gap between them 13 seconds, but Michael Schumacher has stopped. Rubens Barrichello has not stopped. Eddie Irvine in a podium position for Jaguar, 3rd, ahead of Villeneuve, Alesi, and now David Coulthard is in the points.
Yeah, Irvine doing a great job. Barrichello doing a tidy job too to extend that lead. Michael now, of course, with more fuel on board at this stage of the race, having made his stop. But I think Rubens can go far enough, fast enough to make a complete pit stop advantage on Michael. So Michael still has the race under control, but Rubens doing a sterling job in this few laps of the race.
Yeah, so when Barrichello comes in, probably about 7 or 8 seconds for him to make his stop. Here he goes. Now, the seconds ticking away. Look at the background, if the producer lets us, as the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher will appear and go through to take the lead. And it was just under 7 seconds. Barrichello goes through, and Michael Schumacher has not yet passed me. Now he does so, and just takes the lead as Barrichello exits the pit lane. The order has been restored to what it was before. Michael Schumacher on lap 61 out of 78 retakes the lead in the Monaco Grand Prix, with Rubens Barrichello in 2nd place, some 40 seconds ahead of Eddie Irvine's Jaguar.
What happened to you? So can you tell us?
I don't know what happened exactly, but from the apex onwards, I understeered off in a corner in the tunnel. This right-hander, which usually flat without a problem. Don't know what had happened. I slide off.
Must have been a nasty moment, because that's a very high-speed part of the track.
Yeah, I felt a little bit uncomfortable in this moment, I have to say. I have to admit, but banged my head pretty hard there. But it's very difficult to understand right now unless we look at the data of the car, what happened.
Thanks very much.
Eddie Irvine has reached in the race.
Maintaining his lead, pacing himself home as his brother Ralph there in the blue cap walks in after his retirement. So a lot of retirements. Nick Heidfeld is out, Montoya in the Williams is out, Olivier Panis is out, Mika Häkkinen is out, Pedro Della Rosa in the Jaguar, Luciano Berti, Jarno Trulli, Giancarlo Fisichella in the Benetton, and now of course Heinz Harald Frentzen and Fernando Alonso and Tarso Marquez. So they're busy. But as I've said before many times, catching is one thing and getting past is quite a...
Funny enough, Murray, I think it's Jenson Button behind him who has already stopped. It is just 17 seconds down the road now, because Button just had a very bad lap on the same lap that Coulthard did the 19.9. So Coulthard needs to get far enough ahead so he doesn't have to overtake Button, and that might just give him a shot at Alesi.
Lap 63 at Monaco, 15 to go. What are the points positions? Well, it is looking, subject to reliability, like being a crushing 1-2 for Ferrari. As you watch the flying David Coulthard showing us what he could have done if only he had got away well at the start. Ferrari first and second, and Eddie Irvine is still in that superb third position for Jaguar. As I said before, Eddie Irvine with Ferrari and with Jaguar has had second, third and fourth places at Monaco, and it looks as though with luck and good fortune he's going to be able to make another third place. Jacques Villeneuve fourth for BAR to give them points. Jean Alesi fifth for Prost, and David Coulthard in sixth position, potentially with a World Championship point. He's lapping 2.5 seconds faster than Alesi, but he's going to need at least 6 or 7 laps to catch the Prost.
Yeah, sorry to spoil that story though, Murray, but Alesi's already made his pit stop, so Coulthard, amazingly, on lap 64, still hasn't had to pit, so he was carrying a lot of fuel, and once again it confirms that McLaren have a bigger fuel tank than Ferrari, and that'll pay dividends a little bit later on in the season at Monza and Hockenheim and places like that. But Coulthard's major headache, really more
of him, is Michael Schumacher leading the race, and in walks Tarso Marquez, the Brazilian Minardi driver, who's already had 3 failures to finish this season. He drove in champ car races in America last year and the year before. He had driven as a protege of Crichton Browns in Formula One before, but he hasn't shown the promise this year that we thought he had. Kimi Raikkonen rounds at the Rascasse. Now the gap between Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello, and it'll stay that way to the end of the race, provided that they both finish it, and I'm very careful about that caveat, is just about 10 seconds. Eddie Irvine is actually catching Rubens Barrichello in front of him, but there's a 40-second gap between the two of them. And if Irvine can finish in third position, the flags will really be waving at Coventry and everywhere else where Jaguar are powerful.
And still Coulthard doesn't have to come in the pit, so that's 65 laps, at least 66 he will be able to complete, and I think now he will have the gap to Jenson Button that he needs to make that pit stop and retain his 6th place. It'll be reasonably close. Depends how much time he makes on this, and I don't know, who knows when his in-lap is. But Verstappen not threatening Button behind, and as I said, Coulthard can't catch Alesi in front. But really, the crew are
fastest lap of the race to reduce the gap between himself and Rubens Barrichello to well under 40 seconds, and 38 seconds to be exact. Look at David Coulthard revelling now, liberated psychologically, as he flings the McLaren round the circuit. Flings it, but being very careful indeed not to fling it into anything. He's just done a 1:20.6 compared with Michael Schumacher 1:22.3.
And he'll be in this lap. We saw the mechanics in the pit. Well, yes, in the pit lane. So James, take it over.
Well, at this late stage of the race, Martin, you need 22 seconds. It's how much you lose to get back out on the pit lane, and he was 23 seconds ahead of Jenson Button. If any crew could pull this off, it's the McLaren crew. A great
down on David Coulthard as the McLaren accelerates back. So 10 cars left, of whom only 4 are on the same lap. Do you remember earlier on when I said there have been occasions when only 5 cars have finished this race, only 3 of whom have been on the lap, somebody on the same lap, and somebody may well be in touch with us to say there have been other occasions when it's been even more dramatic than that. But it's not going to be so very different in this race, because there are only 4 on the same lap now. Michael Schumacher that you're looking at as he goes through to complete his 68th lap in the 78th lap race, and we'll see what the gap is between him and Rubens Barrichello. It was 8.8 seconds. The second Ferrari blasts past me. He's taken nearly another second out of Schumacher's lead. It is down to 7.9 seconds. But although I haven't the faintest idea, of course, what's going on in Michael Schumacher's mind or inside the cockpit of the lead Ferrari, I don't imagine that there is a problem, and I'm quite sure that Michael Schumacher is just pacing himself home to victory in the knowledge that he's just got those few laps to go, and that Rubens Barrichello there is not going to be allowed to pass him.
Another new lap record for David Coulthard then. Nailed down there in 6th place. Nothing he can do from there with the laps remaining, but at least has the satisfaction right now of a new lap record.
Well, let's think about the World Championship. If the positions are retained, it means to say that Michael Schumacher will have extended his lead over David Coulthard by 9 points, from 4 points to 13 points. A very dramatic tripling of his advantage. And of course Ferrari are going to be laughing in the Constructors' Championship. Into the closing laps of the 2001 Monaco Grand Prix as you look at Eddie Irvine's Jaguar, which is still in that superb, well-deserved 3rd position, a potential podium place for the Irishman. David Coulthard is shattering the lap record as in 6th position he circulates this track faster and faster. He's just gone round in 1 minute 19.4, which is 2.1 seconds faster than the previous lap record held by Mika Hakkinen, and it was put up in last year. So that's how much quicker they are going this year. Rubens Barrichello is 8 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, who seems to me to be pacing himself calmly and in his experienced way to yet another victory. If it is, it will be his 48th Grand Prix in his 150th year, 150th Grand Prix. Eddie Irvine is 36 seconds behind Barrichello, lapping faster but not fast enough to catch him. Jacques Villeneuve is closing on the Jaguar. 5th
place man Lacey in the pits then for another stop, surprising so late in the race, but Lacey then, your current 5th place man, having to make a late stop.
Now, David Coulthard was 27 seconds behind Lacey. If he can get through before the Prost leaves the pits, it doesn't look to me as though he's going to. It means he could get 2 points instead of 1. Out goes Lacey, and Coulthard has passed me. He's ahead. He's ahead. David Coulthard is now on 2 points instead of 1. You may think that that's not all that exciting, but it really is as far as David Coulthard is concerned. He started in pole position. It was to start in pole position. He couldn't get away. He started last, and he's fought his way up to 5th in the race. This is another barn.
Murray just gets them into the TV money for the following season. That will be a crucial point. And here's the moment when Coulthard takes 5th. Lacey coming out from that very late stop in the race. Coulthard then, will he slow down a bit now? He's got no chance of catching Villeneuve. Going to be best part of a minute behind. All of that time he lost crucially behind Bernoldi at the beginning of the race. Bernoldi just driving defensively, slowing them all down, and Bernoldi back down in 9th place now, lapping some 4 seconds a lap slower than Coulthard. What a shame Coulthard didn't manage to get past him. I guess my technique of having him off the road may have lost me a wheel or a nose, and at least David, with his patience, is now staring at 2 maybe very crucial World Championship points.
How are the runners and riders doing on lap 72 out of 78? Ferrari are doing famously, thank you very much, say the men from Maranello, because they are 1st and 2nd with 6 laps to go at the end of this one. Schumacher leading Barrichello, looking good for Prix-World Championship points for the BAR team, and Villeneuve has already scored points this season, but his teammate Panis retired a long time ago. David Coulthard, of course, 2 points in the offing. Mika Hakkinen long since disappeared, and Jean Lacey looks as though he's going to get that 1 point for Prost, which Martin has told you is so vital to the team.
Jenson Button in 7th place, but going quite slowly now, so maybe Button's got a problem creeping in these late stages. Alesi hanging on to that 6th place then, but not in any kind of position to challenge him, it seems.
And the remaining 3 are Jos Verstappen, so both the arrows are still running in the top 9 because Bernoldi, Verstappen's teammate, is in 9th place. Kimi Räikkönen 5 laps down is the last runner in 10th place, only 4 on the same lap.
Irvine's got a problem in the shape of Villeneuve, now just 3.7 seconds behind. We're just missing Villeneuve out of the picture each time as they cut away from Eddie Irvine, and the gap down to just 3 seconds. Now you'll see him. And so launching an attack then, but as you've said many times before, Murray, catching's one thing, passing is altogether another. But let's recap on quite a dramatic early stage of the race. David Coulthard stalling on the dummy grid for whatever reason, we don't know. Starting at the back, Michael Schumacher making a textbook start. No dramas at all in the first few corners. Heidfeld tripping over an arrows and hitting the wall halfway round that first lap, and the race very much settled into a pace. Montoya, the first to make a mistake, striking the barriers in the first part of the swimming pool, dropping out of what was then 5th place. Ralf Schumacher retiring later on with, we think, some kind of engine problem. Frentzen hitting the walls, hydraulics failure for Ralf, we're hearing. Frentzen hit the wall, Fisichella hit the wall, Jarno Trulli caught fire, and Mika Hakkinen with a car that was trying to turn right every time he hit the throttle pedal, just as he started to make a big charge on Michael Schumacher, who Hakkinen was currently lying 2nd at that time, and just as we were shaping up for a very exciting challenge, unfortunately Mika Hakkinen's car failed him.
Well, keep your fingers crossed, everybody, especially Wolfgang Reitzler, who's probably watching this race, the boss of Jaguar. He's done so much to get the team up into Formula One, and he's seeing the potential now of his man, Eddie Irvine, getting the first podium for Jaguar ever. But not if Jacques Villeneuve can do anything about it, although Eddie Irvine has just responded with a lap 0.4 of a second faster than Jacques Villeneuve, which argues that he could be knowing exactly what the situation is. Michael Schumacher is going through to complete his lap now. That will take him into lap 74. 5 laps to go now for Michael Schumacher, with Rubens Barrichello 6.5 seconds behind him.
Yeah, we've hardly seen Michael all afternoon. We've barely said anything about him. Went off into the lead from what was then effectively pole position, and he's just been cruising around when he had to, put a couple of hot laps, and we're about to see, I suspect, a Ferrari formation finish.
Yeah, and it's the mark of a truly great driver if you can win at Monaco, as Senna did 6 times, as Graham Hill did 5 times, as Schumacher has already done 4 times. He was leading very convincingly last year when that cracked exhaust burnt through the carbon fibre suspension systems. And here is the battle for 3rd, Irvine, and 4th, the white BAR Honda of Jacques Villeneuve, and the gap is 3 seconds now. So Villeneuve is continuing to cut into that lead of Eddie Irvine's as the Irishman turns into the Mirabeau corner, goes down to the slowest corner on the course, the Grand Hotel corner, down to the Portier, and then through the tunnel again. Now, these two have not been lapped, so they will have to go the full race distance of 78 laps. Michael Schumacher will soon be starting. Indeed, he's on his 76th lap now. So laps 76, 77 and 78. There's going to be no doubt about the winner and second place, provided Schumacher and Barrichello stay where they are. But there could be a real doubt about who is going to be 3rd, the Jaguar of Eddie Irvine or the BAR Honda of Jacques Villeneuve, the 1997 world champion.
And Villeneuve's on a stonking lap. He's 0.7 of a second faster on this current lap than Eddie Irvine. You're watching 5th place man David Coulthard, who is a lap down, and 3 laps remain, as you can see. So Irvine over the line, and the gap will be down to 2.3 seconds now then. So just 2.3 seconds between Irvine 3rd, Villeneuve 4th.
Yeah, but if Eddie can just keep it up, he looks to me as though he's going to be all right. Villeneuve may close right up on him. But that Jaguar is then going to be 18 metres. Is the course width, is it? Well, if it is, that's how wide the Jaguar is going to be, because Eddie Irvine will just be able to plant it on the fastest racing line, keep it there and say, OK, Jacques, the only way you're going to get past me is to push me off. And the French-Canadian is unlikely deliberately to do that. As Jack, he is 27 seconds behind John Alesi. The positions look set. But in 1970, was it, Jacques Brabham in his Brabham came down to the last corner. It was himself to be distracted by Pierre's courage. He went off and Jochen Rindt came through and won the race brilliantly. So it's not over until it's over. But Michael Schumacher knows that as well as anybody as he goes into the tunnel for the 77th time. That is Prince Albert of Monaco. Here again, as he has been all through his life, to watch the Monaco Grand Prix, for which his father, His Serene Highness Prince Rainier, has done so much.
I think Eddie Irvine's done enough. He just put his fastest lap of the racing on a 20.6, 1 minute 20.6, and maintained the gap last time around. So Irvine has done enough, I think, to get that very, very well-deserved podium. And I, for one, will be seriously happy for the Jaguar team.
As we all will, and as Michael Schumacher exits the Rascasse into the Anthony Nogue corner to start his 78th and last lap, and David Coulthard just clips the edge of the road at the chicane, but he's perfectly all right there. Michael Schumacher, 1 lap to go.
Yeah, I tell you, just clip the edge of those curves. Remember, the car runs about ½ an inch high off the ground only, and you're sitting on the floor of it. I can tell it brings tears to your eyes, one of those things, and it trashes the underfloor. That's probably 20 grand's worth of carbon fibre just gone underneath that. It looked a pretty simple incident. Outbraked himself at the chicane. He's been pushing very, very hard, but of course he doesn't want to go across there if he can help it. You can sometimes be penalised.
Michael Schumacher's 5th Monaco win and his 48th career win coming up. Another glorious 1-2 for the Maranello concern of Ferrari. And that will mean 16 Constructors' Championship points, 10 Drivers' Championship points for Michael Schumacher, who is allowing Rubens Barrichello, as Schumacher looks in the mirrors, to close right up on his rear wing. It's going to be a formation finish, as you predicted, Martin, into the swimming pool and out of it for the last time. Schumacher has only now got to go round the Rascasse, which he is at. First gear, 20 miles an hour. Coasted home, Michael. And around the Anthony Nogue corner, up comes Rubens Barrichello. Schumacher wins in Monaco. Barrichello is second, right behind his team leader. 16 points for Ferrari, 10 for Michael Schumacher, 6 for Barrichello. What about third place?
Yeah, and that was the photo for all the albums at the end of the year. The show finished there from Ferrari, 1-2 over the line, and Irvine then clearly is comfortably going to take that final podium position. And James Allen was pointing out, as the Stewart team, they've had their first podium here. Now Jaguar, that team morphed into Jaguar, and their first podium then over the line in Monte Carlo. Villeneuve 4th.
Well done, Eddie Irvine. That is a brilliant drive. He's had a lot of criticism this year, and he has phlegmatically struck to his last, and he's paid off. But you can see now Jenson Button pursued by the Sauber, but they're on different laps, of course. And the Monaco Grand Prix victory in the year 2001 goes to Ferrari and Schumacher, with Barrichello and Ferrari in second place. A lot of very happy people there, including Jean Todt, the team manager, but not nearly as happy, I'm sure, as Jaguar. First World Championship points this year, first podium ever, Eddie Irvine, great drive. And 3 points to BAR and Jacques Villeneuve. David Coulthard, after a stonking drive from last to 5th position, gets 2 points. And Prost do indeed, with John Alesi finishing in 6th place, get that 1 World Championship point, which is going to get their tails very high indeed.
So Michael increases his lead in the World Championship. Crucial 2 points then for David Coulthard. Strong drive from Barrichello, the man you're looking at now, but not strong enough to match this man, the 5 times winner of this Grand Prix. Coulthard then maintaining his record of scoring points in every Grand Prix this year.
Indeed, he has, yes. Second place in Brazil, third place in Malaysia, a brilliant win in Australia, second place, brilliant win in Brazil, and then that second place again at Imola, fifth in Spain, a win in Austria, and now another fifth place. And that means to say that Michael Schumacher has extended his World Championship lead over David Coulthard from 4 points to 12. Rubens Barrichello, of course, is still in third position as a result of that second place that he has had in the race. In fourth place, it's still Ralf Schumacher and Heidfeld, and is in fifth place. But Jacques Villeneuve has now moved ahead of the German Heidfeld and his Sauber team to sixth in the Drivers' Championship. So BAR and Jaguar and Prost have got a return and a reward at Monaco after all their efforts. And Ferrari have shown that if you stick at it the way they have by appointing new people and continuing to improve the product, you can become a Grand Prix and a championship winner.
But I can't help think that we were robbed of a great sporting event this afternoon with Häkkinen's technical problems, whatever. Coulthard's problems were on the start line, because the pace of the McLarens when they were running was just sensational. So it would have been a true head-to-head this afternoon, and one I'm afraid we've been robbed of.
Yeah, let us remind ourselves that David Coulthard not only has those 2 World Championship points for fifth place, but a terrific fastest lap, record lap at Monaco, 1:19.4, and he did it on his 68th lap, 10 laps from the end, when he'd got past Bernoldi and everybody else. Now, there were some hard feelings between Barrichello and Michael Schumacher, not between Michael Schumacher and Barrichello in the past, and Michael congratulates his old Ferrari teammate Eddie Irvine on having achieved a podium position for his new team. New last year, Jaguar, and he's still there this year. Eddie will, I'm quite sure, when he's talking in the interview room, be very calm and dispassionate about it all. He will say that this is what we were trying to do, and we must continue to keep trying. Very, very happy Ferrari team. Very, very happy Michael Schumacher. He stopped by the royal box, and that is Prince Rainier with the grey hair and the glasses. Whether it's going to be him or his son Prince Albert that presents the prize, I do not know. But now, to confirm the caption that you're seeing, Ferrari are 32, a massive 32 points ahead of McLaren, as Michael Schumacher, cap on. First, it has on the side of the cap Rubens Barrichello, cap off, bows to His Serene Highness. Prince Albert gives him his trophy, and there's some very happy people, but as I said before, none so happy as Jaguar or Eddie Irvine. It's been a great drive. Williams still third in the Constructors' Championship, Jordan in fourth position, but BAR have now moved ahead of Sauber, so Craig Pollock's team is getting there. So the strains of the Italian national anthem to honour Ferrari die away with their two men up there on the top step.
Does Michael Schumacher do that? Look, his hair is not even the slightest bit wet. He's not been sweating at all. I know he's been cruising at the front this afternoon, but it's amazing.
He's nauseatingly fit. But then so's David Coulthard. They've got to be the two fittest men in Grand Prix racing. So, well, as you've pointed out, Martin, it could have been a more dramatic race if David Coulthard had got away well, but it just wasn't to be. But now David has extended his already dramatic lead over his teammate Mika Häkkinen, double world champion, by a further 2 points. And the championship is not yet won by Michael Schumacher. 10 races to go. It's all to play for.
Hold it.